A couple of stories I'm going to be discussing with Ralph Schulhammer, who is a political theorist and professor at Webster University in Vienna. Ralph, let's get him in right now. Hi, Ralph. How are you doing today?
Hey, Alex. Good to see you. How are you doing?
Good to see you. I always love it when you're on the show. When Ted told me you're on today, I was like, yes, get in there. We got Ralph.
The pleasure is all mine.
Now, I want to talk to you about this EU mobility scheme. Now, freedom of movement should have been a thing of the past. As soon as we signed the really rubbish Brexit deal, at least we were protecting our borders in theory. And a leaked codex of the EU's position, which has been given to Politico, the website, says that the bloc regards free movement for young people as an indispensable element of negotiations with the UK government. So anything that Sir Keir Starmer wants to try and get out of the EU, and he said, oh, I'm going to have a better relationship, I'm going to go back, I'm going to renegotiate this and that. And of course, we all know that he's the world's #1 fan of Brexit. And can't wait to uphold its values. What they have said is the condition of this is allowing a mobility of young people. Well, isn't that nice, you think? Young people who will come and work in our bars and study. I smell a rat. I'll tell you what I think this is, because this mobility scheme is people under 30. It's not going to be young Germans coming to pull pints. It's not going to be Spanish kids who want to go to our universities. If they wanted to go to our universities, that's available to them anyway. If they wanted to go work in the City of London, get a visa, that's available to them anyway. I reckon this youth mobility scheme, youth being under 30, is a way for them to offload their migrants to us. What do you reckon?
Well, it's a little bit ironic, isn't it? I mean, you have the Germans, you have the French, you have the Dutch. Everybody in Europe is now re-establishing border controls. Borders are going back up all over Europe. But in the negotiations with the one country that left the European Union, the argument is, well, you guys really have to open up your borders for the free movement of peoples. No, I think you're absolutely right. But a lot of these debates, both from the anti and pro-Brexit side, I think miss the point. Don't forget, at the end of the day, it is the British or the British people and British Parliament who's supposed to make the laws. So if the British want to get the best of the best in the world, create conditions at home that makes your country attractive for the best of the best in the world. I believe, and this is true for both sides in this debate, I always have sympathized with the side of Brexit. But I think the big mistake was that the true problem for the UK at the moment is not and has never been the European Union. It is what British politicians, beginning, I would argue, with Rishi Sunak, now up to Keir Starmer, has been doing to the British people, at the British economy, and if you want, British culture in general. So a lot of the problems, and that's both the good and the bad news, but a lot of the problems that need a resolution, that need to be solved, actually begin in Britain. But you could do a lot at home. If Britain becomes the most attractive place in the world to work, the good people will come. You don't need an agreement with the European Union.
This is what I think is funny about this, that the EU's pushing. I sat in that parliament. I know how they work and I know what it is they want. And they've been trying to push migrant quotas onto us for a long time. They've been saying, oh, yeah, they might come across in dinghies from Calais, but you're not taking your fair share, are you? And this isn't about getting young Italians to come work in finance. You can't walk 2 paces in South Kensington without bumping into someone from Rome who's over here working in the City of London. We're packed full of those people. I think there's every opportunity for the brightest and the best to come, get a job with a visa, and the world is their oyster. This isn't about that. The people that the EU want to offload, the under 30s, will be a lot of young male under 30s who arrived in the continent because they have had a lot more than we have. They've given them documents and they would rather see the back of them. And I'm pretty sure, knowing how the EU works, this is their cunning little way of trying to make that happen. And if Starmer falls for this, he's an absolute mug, because I cannot see that this is young Spaniards and young French and young Germans who want to suddenly come and work in hospitalities. This is about them saying, we've got a lot of young men here, lots and lots more than you do, who came from different countries, and we're struggling to accommodate them, and this is a way we can trap Britain into taking them on.
And let me say this again. I think this is so important. You do not need an agreement with the European Union for this. It is within the authority of the British government to decide, or it should be, let's put it this way, it should be, who comes and who doesn't come to the United Kingdom. Now, that you screwed up your immigration policy in a similar way as the Germans, the French, and the rest of Europe did, I mean, that's a problem we all have. But you can change this at home. As I said before, if you say, Ralph, you are a fantastic guy. We want you to work in Britain. Here's a work visa for you. You can do this. You don't have to go to Brussels to get Ralph. This is a thing that we can make between me and the British government, hypothetically. So the problem is that all these politicians, they like to use Brussels and the EU as an excuse. Oh, we can't do anything. By the way, it's not just the European Union. It's the European Court of Justice. Oh, it's the European Court of Human Rights. Oh, it's this. Oh, it's that. We can't do anything. It's the constant shirking of responsibilities. You can do a lot, but politicians love to pretend doing something, but ultimately don't do anything, or in the worst case, do things that are diametrically opposed to the interests of the British people. And this is precisely what we see at the moment. Don't fall for it. I mean, this is what I tell your listeners. Don't fall for it. Demand action by your politicians and kind of screw them for this whole, oh, we can do anything, because it's not true.
I agree with you totally. If only we could. We've blimmin' just got into power of a massive majority. We're stuck with these bozos for about 5 years, Ralph, and dangerous they are indeed. Now, I want to read you something which I think is the funniest thing I've ever read on the BBC. You know, the good old BBC. It says, this is the top line of their story. While scientists are reluctant to say any single extreme event was caused by climate change, I hadn't noticed scientists were reluctant to say that. Researchers have been quick to point out the role that rising temperatures have had in making the Spanish floods worse. Now, I mean, that's gaslighting, isn't it? Because, look, I'm not going to say climate change is true or not. I'm no scientist at all. But this idea that they don't jump upon any single thing, you know, any single named storm and say, well, this is the climate crisis, is for the birds. Without doubt, those floods in Spain are horrific. The images we're getting beamed over here are shocking. The death toll is appallingly high. The carnage that they've created is truly terrifying. And yet the problem is, you know, however ghoulish these things are, this is exactly what scientists and especially political entities do jump on to try and force the net zero narrative.
No, I think it's true. And one has always to keep in account that there was a similar flood in 1957 in a similar region, but there was a smaller number of people that lived there. So, of course, the death toll was significantly lower. But let's hypothetically assume that all of this is truly due to climate change, right? And let's assume, hypothetically, that the entirety of climate change is due to human industrial activity. Well, then let's be completely honest here. What the British and the Spaniards do will not make a lot of difference. So unless the Royal Air Force is willing to carpet bomb, you know, Chinese coal power plants and the Chinese industry, nothing is going to happen. And there we see the inverse of our previous argument. So the argument is we cannot control who comes into Britain, but controlling the global climate, that is something we can do. And this is, of course, the entire ridiculousness of the argument, is that if we take this argument seriously, okay, it really is climate change, then we have to look at who is currently contributing the most to the global climate change. And that is, for better or worse, it's the Chinese, then in the future being followed by the Indians. And by the way, they will not stop doing it for a very good reason, because there are 5 billion people in the world who want to have a living standard that is similar to the living standard of Alex and Ralph.
Yeah, and ironically, they're the people who are making our wind turbines and making the solar panels and making the batteries for the electric vehicles, using a load of fossil fuels, chugging CO2 in the atmosphere in order to do it. And a lot of these things, the payoff, you know, if you have 100 years worth of CO2 to make one, you know, electric vehicle, you don't own that electric vehicle for 100 years. It never seems to add up to me. Ralph, thank you ever so much. I love talking to you. I love the way you sort of talk about Alex and Ralph in the third person as well. It's kind of like quite poetic.
It's a very British thing to do.
It's very, yes, it is indeed. And let's catch up again soon. It's always a delight having you on the programme. But, you know, Ralph makes a very good point there. The net zero is basically giving a hall pass to China to create emissions so we may industrially self-flagellate the other side of the world.
Well, there's a couple of things in here. One, there's an opportunity to try and create new technologies and get technology advancing, and it's an excuse for that. But what Ralph said is 100% right. What the UK does, or any one country does in isolation, will have no impact whatsoever. This has to be done from a global perspective down, first of all, if you're going to have an impact. And therefore, what we're going to do by all this investment that's coming out of the government in you giving 11.3 billion to overseas green projects is actually going to disable the UK's economy. It's going to disable our politics. It's going to disable our influence. It's going to reduce.
We should be giving that 11 billion to our own people, our own businesses.
100%. And it's going to impact our position in the world and make us less of an influence. And therefore, we're hurting climate influence in the future by making ourselves less relevant.
Am I right in thinking we've actually got lithium that we could mine here?
Oh yes,
Yeah.
in Cornwall, under the tin mines that we saw in Poldark.
Yeah.
Reopen them again. There's
Yeah, let's
lithium
get
there.
down there. Let's get some of that stuff out. Make Britain great again. I've never understood why we seem to just pass all of this over to other countries and they go, oh, we don't understand why our economy is not growing. It's absolute madness. Right. Oh, also, one thing while we're on the subject of climate change. I was listening to Radio 4 this morning, as I'm wont to do, and I noticed the BBC, a Today programme, right, we're talking about this going on in Spain, a bit like this headline, scientists aren't. They rarely say that an extreme event is due to climate change. You kidding me? So he did this story on Radio 4 and I noticed a new form of words that must have been nodded through. Yeah, it's not man-made climate change anymore. It's human-caused climate change.
Well,
don't you gender that climate crisis, whatever you do.
I'm afraid by doing that, I'm going to be controversial. Lots of people are I'm going to create ructions across the country. It's all women's fault.
Right.
If it was man-made 100% beforehand, and it's now human-made, that means that women must have come up to 50%. So the male influence has disappeared,
right.
and it's the female influence that's
when we were a
causing these problems.
patriarchal industrialist country,
so
it was all fine.
It's your fault. Yeah.
I'm sorry. It is. I mean, we were the ones who put that hole in the ozone layer. Where did that go? That was our deodorants and our hairsprays. That's what used to terrify us at school. Yeah, I remember GCSE geography, and it was all about that acid rain. Where did that go?
Oh.
Did that thing close?
It got out of the charts, wasn't that the song in the charts at one stage?
Yeah, it's not popular anymore. It's all the climate crisis now.